Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever noticed how swapping out just a single door can completely transform the entire vibe of a room? It's honestly incredible. But on the flip side, we all know the absolute daily misery of a badly hung door. You know the one. It sticks, it rattles in the frame, or it just flat out refuses to latch. Well, today we are going to completely avoid all of that frustration. We're going to walk through the absolute best beginner-friendly secrets to pulling off a flawless interior door installation.
So here's our step-by-step roadmap for today. 1. Prepping your new door. 2. The old door template trick. 3. Pro secrets for hardware cuts. 4. Avoiding common drilling mistakes. 5. Hanging for a perfect fit. And lastly, 6. The flawless final finish.
All right, let's jump right in. Section 1. Prepping your new door. Blank versus pre-hung. This is kind of the biggest decision you have to make before you even set foot in a hardware store. You really need to take a good hard look at your existing door frame. If it's heavily damaged, rotted, or completely warped out of shape, you absolutely need a pre-hung door, which actually includes the frame itself. But if your frame is still in great shape, a blank, which is also called a slab door, is going to save you a ton of unnecessary labor, time, and cash. For our explainer today, we're going to assume your frame is solid and you're working with a blank door.
Okay, let's talk toolkit, because having the right gear before you start is an absolute game changer. You're going to need a thin Phillips head screwdriver and a hammer just to tap out your old hinge pins. Grab a roll of painter's tape for organizing your parts. We'll get to that brilliant little trick later. But the real heroes here are your precision tools. A speed square to check your alignments and a wheel marking gauge for getting exact depths. If you're doing the cutouts yourself, a hinge jig paired with a router is incredibly helpful, along with a nice, sharp wood chisel to clean everything up.
Oh, and before we make a single cut, here is a massive pro tip for you. When you're picking out that new door, really consider upgrading to a solid core door. Not only do they have this beautiful, premium heavy feel when you swing them, but that solid center adds some serious soundproofing to your space. It's a huge bonus, especially for bedrooms or a home office.
Moving on to Section 2, the old door template trick. Stop measuring from scratch.
Seriously, this is literally the ultimate beginner hack. Instead of pulling your hair out trying to measure everything from scratch, you're just going to use your old door as a giant stencil. First, pop those old hinge pins out by tapping a thin screwdriver upward with your hammer. Carefully take the old door down, strip off the hardware, and just lay it directly on top of your brand new door across a couple of sawhorses. Then take your speed square and make sure the top edges and the hinge side edges are perfectly 100% flush. Just like that, you've got a perfect one-to-one template.
But hey, what if the universe doesn't cooperate and things aren't perfectly uniform? You definitely have to double-check that the old and new doors are the exact same width, because sometimes they just aren't. If your new door turns out to be slightly wider, no big deal. You'll just need to take a few really careful passes with a planer down the edge until it matches your old door perfectly.
Okay, I want you to lock this magic number into your brain. 10. This is the 10-inch rule, and it's a lifesaver for figuring out your bottom clearance. Before you even take the old door off the hinges, close it and make a mark exactly 10 inches up from the floor. Once you have both doors stacked on your sawhorses later, you just transfer that exact 10-inch mark from the old door over to the new door. This gives you a totally reliable baseline so you can measure down and trim off any excess at the bottom. It guarantees your new door will clear your carpet or hardwood just as perfectly as the old one.
All right, Section 3, Pro Secrets for Hardware Cuts. Navigating the scary steps.
Let's be real, this is where the sweat starts pouring for beginners. Actually cutting into that flawless, brand new wood. And hey, mistakes happen to everyone. Check out this totally relatable rookie mistake from one of our sources. They carefully set up a saw guide, made a super confident cut, and then suddenly realized they had completely chopped off the door's entire bottom rail. Absolute panic mode, right? But the fix was actually surprisingly easy. They just cut a replacement rail from the scrap wood on the other side of the door, slapped some wood glue on it, and seamlessly glued it right back in place. The lesson here? Take a deep breath, measure twice, but remember that almost anything is fixable.
So the real secret sauce for a professional look is creating perfect hinge mortises. That's just the shallow cutout where the metal hinge sits. First, use that wheel marking gauge we talked about to grab the exact depth of the old hinge and transfer that depth to the new door. Next, take a utility knife and really firmly score your trace lines. Why? Because when you go in with your chisel to make relief cuts, that scored line acts like a wall and magically stops the wood from splintering past your mark.
Now, if you're using a router to speed things up, remember that it leaves the corners curved, so you'll still have to tap those corners perfectly square with your chisel so standard hinges will fit. And what if you slip and chisel a bit too deep? Don't stress, just tuck a simple little piece of cardboard behind the hinge as a shim and it'll pop it out perfectly flush.
Section 4. Avoiding common drilling mistakes. Welcome to the splinter zone.
Just picture this for a second. You are driving a massive, aggressive hole saw straight through the face of your pristine new door to make room for the doorknob. How on earth do you stop the sheer, violent force of that drill from just blowing out and splintering the wood as it bursts through the back side?
The solution is actually so simple it's genius. You simply do not drill all the way through. Step 1. You start drilling from the front side, but you only go about halfway. Step 2. You stop the drill the exact millisecond the small center bit, which is called the arbor, pokes a tiny little hole through the back side of the door. Step 3. You pull the drill out, flip the entire door over, stick your drill bit into that tiny pilot hole you just created and finish the cut coming from the opposite direction. The result, you get a flawlessly clean, completely splinter-free hole on both sides.
Section 5. Hanging for a perfect fit. The magic clearances. Real quick, here's a total sanity saver for organizing your parts. When you are transferring hardware over, you're going to have all these tiny, loose screws just rolling around trying to get lost. Grab a piece of sticky painter's tape, lay your screws down on the sticky side, and literally tape them directly to the matching hinge. It keeps the whole shebang exactly where you need it when you're ready to put it all together.
Now, as you finally attach those hinges to your new door, you absolutely have to create pilot holes. Please don't skip this. A pilot hole is just a small pre-drilled hole that gives the screw threads somewhere to go. You can use a tiny drill bit, or honestly, you can just tap a nail in and pull it back out to mark your spot. Doing this guarantees your screws go in dead straight, and it completely stops the wood from cracking under the pressure.
All right, the hinges are on. You're going to carry the door over to the frame, slide it into the old hinge plates, and drop your pins back in. Now comes the moment of truth, checking your clearances. Let's look at the head, that's the top of the door, and the strike side, which is the edge where the latch actually clicks into the frame.
For the door to close cleanly with no rubbing or sticking, you want exactly 1/8 of an inch of clearance along both the top and the latch sides. If you followed that old door template trick closely earlier, you should be right on the money here.
Now let's slide over and check the hinge side. Because of the specific way a door pivots on its hardware, this side actually needs a much tighter tolerance so it can swing correctly without binding up. On the hinge side, you want a really precise 1/16 of an inch clearance. If all your gaps look good and the door swings smoothly back and forth, congratulations, you've just hit the absolute ultimate metric for a professional, flawless fit.
And finally, Section 6, the flawless final finish, painting like a pro.
Here's a pro tip before we wrap up. Painting your new door before you fully install the doorknob and lock set is almost always the smartest move, just so you don't have to awkwardly try and tape around them. Here's a foolproof way to paint it. First, wipe it down and make sure it is completely free of any sawdust. Second, take a paintbrush and carefully get into any beveled grooves or recessed panels. Third, grab a roller right away and hit all the wide, flat surfaces so you get a nice, smooth, streak-free finish. Give it 2 coats, letting it dry in between, then just flip the door and do the same thing to the other side. Once it's all dry, pop your doorknob in and step back to admire a job well done. So now that you know all the beginner-friendly secrets to a flawless interior door installation, what room in your house are you going to transform next?